everybody, welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk About, or LTA as we call it here in the office. Today the roster or the cast is a bit different. Today it will be me, Rory and Alex. So Alex has come back to LTA finally, yes. But today we will be talking over 3 topics again, as usual. That's our format, in case you haven't picked up on it already. And we'll be going in depth into these 3 topics that we think we feel like are interesting, and also what people have been asking us about. So yeah, today we'll be talking about the Huawei ban, which is the whole situation around the US ban on Huawei, how it's going to affect them, especially how it's going to affect their upcoming smartphone, the Mate 30 and Mate 30 Pro. That'll be very interesting to see. Can you imagine a Mate 30 without Android?
Can you just imagine that?
I cannot. Besides that, we will also be talking about Android smartphones. The new one that just launched in Malaysia this week or last week,
depending when you watch this video.
Recently. So this phone is called the Black Shark 2 Pro. It's the new gaming smartphone from Black Shark, which is like a Xiaomi-backed company that they've already made, like I think two or three other Black Shark gaming phones. So this is the latest one, super powerful, designed to be attractive to gamers because of their power, and also, I mean, it looks like a gaming phone now, right? And then we'll also take a look at that versus something like the ROG Phone 2, which Alex got to check out in Taiwan recently. So we'll see how they stack up and whether you actually need a gaming phone in the future. Cloud gaming. Yeah. Besides that, we'll also be talking about roaming. Now, a lot of people have asked us, like, what do you do when you go overseas? Because we actually travel quite a lot for events. So we will be sharing our personal experiences. That we will be going over a couple of roaming options, including the Pocket MiFi solutions, which is the ones where you buy the Pocket MiFi device.
Or you rent
it here
yep.
in Malaysia, and then you go over there and you turn it on and you use. Or you can even get it over there. Then there are also other options like Flexi Roam, and also just roaming from your own plan. Whatever existing plan, Maxis, Digi, U Mobile, whatever it is that you're currently on, just activating their roaming plan, what the experience is like, how much it's going to cost you, and also we will be talking about something pretty interesting, I think fairly new, about the Traveler SIM, which is like this SIM card that is designed for people who travel. First time I'm hearing about this. It's pretty interesting. Alex has all the details. So we'll be getting into that. In the meantime, as usual, if you have any topics that you want us to cover, make sure you just leave them in the comments below. We read all your comments all the time. We may not be able to respond to all of them, but we do read them. So leave whatever suggestions or topics or things that you just want us to get into in the comments below. Okay, with that out of the way, it's time to get into the meat and potatoes with our first topic. Let us begin with the Huawei ban. So now, personally, I haven't been keeping a really close eye on what's happening, but Alex has, and also our Huawei correspondent Nick has, who is in the background over there. Yeah, so they've been following this topic pretty closely. So, Alex, what is the Huawei ban? Like, can you just give us like the brief rundown of like the events that has happened since the beginning until now?
Yeah, so essentially this part of the the trade war that's going on between China and US, and it all started around May 20th of May to be exact, when the US government announced that US companies can't work with Huawei because of security issues, about spying allegations and all that stuff. So to protect US interests, they imposed this ban. And the next day itself, right, I guess the US government realized, oh crap, we can't actually ban them completely, because there's a lot of networks in the US, especially rural areas, that's still dependent on Huawei's technology. So you can't just switch it off overnight.
Yeah, I mean, it's not like they're the world's biggest telecommunications provider or anything like that.
Yeah. So as a result, they gave like a 90-day delay. So it's like a 90-day reprieve. So that gives them a bit of time for them to transition away from Huawei. And as you know, that 30-day came to an end. Yeah, I think recently it was on August last month. So they give another 90 days extension. And according to them, this could possibly be the last extension. So there's no extension after that, and it's going to be completely clean after that. That's what they say.
Boy. Okay, so I think one of the biggest worries from the consumer side of things when this Huawei ban came into action was, I own a Huawei smartphone. What's going to happen with my smartphone, right? So what happened there with Google and all the other services?
I think to address the issue is firstly for existing Huawei users, if you're like Huawei P30 or even a Nova 5T, even on a smartphones, if those phones are already being certified, you have nothing to worry about because you still can continue to use Google services, you still have access to Google App Store, and I think recently Huawei has even launched a campaign, I think it's called the No Worries campaign, whereby they'll guarantee that you can use your Huawei smartphone and have full access to Google Apps, and if this comes to a situation whereby you don't have access, they will give you a full refund.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, so which is what we understood from the ban, where it was like only affecting new devices.
Correct.
And whatever devices were already certified, you were still going to get full service. So actually, I think in Malaysia also, when that panic set in, there were also like other, I think there were restaurants and stuff offering promos for people who were using Huawei devices.
Yeah, you show your phone, you get a discount or something.
Yeah, so that was all like just to ride the hype. But I think that only affects that doesn't really affect current devices or devices that have already been out. But what about something like the Mate 30 or the upcoming Mate 30?
So that's the disturbing part because according to a couple of reports, a Google spokesperson has said that the new Huawei Mate 30, that device will not be allowed to be shipped with Google services and apps. And apparently, the temporary reprieve does not cover new devices, which is quite strange because if you look carefully, right, the Nova 5T was only certified recently, and that's actually certified with the Honor 20 Pro sometime in June. That's a month after the original ban was announced. Yeah. So I'm quite surprised at why the Mate 30 is excluded this time around.
I think I don't know. That's why I was also very surprised to find out that Google wouldn't be certifying the Mate 30 when the Nova 5T was like literally a few weeks ago it came out, and then that was also a proper sort of flagship phone, a Kirin 980, had all the bells and whistles, and then like Honor 20 as well. So I'm not really sure what happened there, but let's say this does happen and the launch is happening anyway, right? It's happening, what was it, next week?
It's 19th of September.
19th of September, so it's already going ahead. There's no mention of a delay.
Nope.
But what can they do there? Like, what's their option if it's not certified on Android?
Yeah, so the thing is, there's a lot of talks about Harmony OS. So there's previously it's known as Hongmeng OS. So apparently it's a new operating system which is like faster than Android and all that stuff. But the key thing is that would you buy a phone that's not running on Android? That's the biggest question.
Harmony OS, that was the interesting operating system that it sort of felt that they had to push out just to sort of counteract the effects of, let's say, they don't have Android, right? And I believe they were pretty confident that they could survive even without Android. But when we spoke to who was Nick? Who did you speak to? When Nick spoke to the country manager, Bill Liu, they were very adamant. They were fully 100% on board supporting Android, and they didn't even want to talk about Hongmeng. Or at that time, we didn't know it was called Harmony OS. It was just Hongmeng at the time, the rumored name. So right now, it seems like they're in a bit of a pickle, right? Because it doesn't seem like they have had enough time to build out something like this.
Correct. And the thing is, it's not easy to come on a new OS. Like, look at the challenges. Look at, say, Windows Phone, for example. Look at that. And also look at BlackBerry as well. And the thing about Hongmeng is that, or right now it's known as Harmony OS. I gotta stop saying Hongmeng. Okay, Harmony OS is that it will be backward compatible with Android, because I guess the biggest concern is the apps, because I want to make sure I can use my Spotify, my YouTube, my Facebooks and all that. So they can't completely cut ties with Android. They need to have some sort of a backward compatibility with Android. But the question is, what is the operating system is based on? Is it like a whole new operating system? Because word has it that Harmony OS was originally designed for smart screens and smart watches, and now it's going to be rolled out to a smartphone in just a couple of months. I'm not too sure whether that works. Yeah,
but I think we don't actually have like a proper timeline on how long they've been developing Harmony OS, right? Because they've kept that pretty under the wraps. So, but we do know that it was initially it was initially designed for sort of smart screens, IoT devices, so
Yep.
not really a phone, which is a lot more complex in terms of operations, or a lot more difficult to sort of develop a operating software for.
Yep.
So if we will put that into context, it's sort of like if Samsung was just like, oh, our phone's running Tizen now.
Yes.
You know, it's just not going to work
Yep.
out as well. And then you mentioned backward compatibility with apps, so support for Android apps, even though you're not.
Yep.
Let's say you don't end up being on Android. So BlackBerry did that, right?
Yep.
They also support WhatsApp and those other applications. But the problem with that is, if it's not on Android, you don't get the full Android experience. And what about new apps that come out and stuff like that? You know, what's going to happen? So let's say we come into this situation where the Mate 30 does not launch with Android, right? And then so the Mate 30, in case you don't know, is Huawei's second flagship phone. It's actually the more capable of the two, because unlike, let's say, Samsung, who also launches 2 sets of flagships in every year, they both use roughly the same processor. This year, I think, was the only time when the Note was like launched with a slightly updated Exynos processor, but on the Snapdragon side, it was still using the 855.
Yep.
So in Huawei's case, actually, the Mate 30 will launch with their new Kirin 990, right?
Yep.
Which is a brand new processor, which is their let's say 2019 this year Mate 30. That is their 2019 processor. So their processors will launch with the Mate 30. So that's a much bigger upgrade. It's a completely different experience to the current flagship, which is this phone, the P30
Pro
and P30 Pro. So can you imagine if they were to launch this, and it will be a high-end flagship?
Yeah.
There will probably be like some Porsche design, you know, exclusive version of the smartphone, and then it's gonna be priced roughly the same as like a Note 10 or even an iPhone, right?
Yeah, $3,000, $4,000. Yeah.
Exactly. So if you're expected to drop money on a smartphone like that, would you buy a phone without Android or Android apps, or with that uncertainty of not being able to support?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. I think that's something that Huawei needs to address when they launch the Mate 30 series. And another possibility which Nick brought up actually, which is quite good, is that it could be running on an open source Android operating system, which is similar to what you get from AP sets. You know, you can get, it's still Android, but you don't get Google Play Store, you don't have YouTube, but it's still Android. So you can install your apps, your APK apps, you can sideload them, or can use an alternative app store, which Huawei has. It's called the App Gallery.
Yeah, you're right, with the App Gallery, right? But even that doesn't have the kind of... Because when I think about like a high-end flagship smartphone like the Mate 30 or you know, like the Note 10 or P30, all those that cost like 3,000-4,000 ringgit, right? They're going to be bought by people who, I feel like when it comes to selling at volume, they're going to be bought by people who can't be bothered with side-loading apps. Like, who's going to go to some dodgy APK site and download it?
I agree.
You know, if you're paying that much money for a phone, you want the phone to work right out of the box, to be exactly what you need. I guess one way is Huawei could pre-install it themselves. Would that work?
I'm not sure, because even Huawei themselves, right, recently they announced that they're going to remove Facebook from being pre-installed on their phones. And another thing is this, a lot of US-based companies, I believe Facebook as well,
you're right,
they will not allow their apps to be listed on the App Store. Sorry, App Gallery. Yeah.
And it's going to be more difficult for them if they want to pre-install it as well, right? Because
correct.
a lot of these companies are all US-based companies.
That's right. So they are a bit in the lingo right now.
Yeah, and it's in quite a rough spot. But I have to say that, okay, so let's just say, what other options does Huawei have besides Harmony? Do they have any other operating systems that they can go to?
I don't think so.
Windows
Phone.
No, I mean,
No,
Windows Phone is one thing, but
there.
it's also an American
company.
It's also an American company, Microsoft. So they won't be able to do that.
Maybe they could partner with another, I don't know, another kind of ROM, I don't know, Cyanogen.
Oh, well, Cyanogen's one thing, right?
Yeah.
But we did also see what happened with them and OnePlus,
True.
which they have since split ways. That's rough. So yeah, Huawei's in quite a tough spot right now. But if they were to launch with Harmony, they would really need some killer features if they want to get not only people to buy their phone, but people to develop apps for Harmony.
That's right.
Because I think that was one of the biggest reasons why Windows Phone was unable to compete, was simply because the app support wasn't there. So if you look at, I remember my experiences with the Windows Phone. I used one of the last ones
Yeah.
before the whole platform just left.
The 950 XL.
Yeah. That was like a proper like high-end smartphone, right? It had all
Yeah.
the bells and whistles and the stuff that you would want from a proper flagship
phone,
device.
yeah.
But then when you actually use it, you're like, okay, number one, Instagram is still in beta.
There's no Uber app.
There's no.
You need to use the browser to call Uber.
Yeah, and then when we wanted to run benchmarks, Antutu was like 4 versions behind what was already on Android. And
Wait, it's not even a version, it's a beta.
oh yeah, it
It's
was
like-
actually still like a beta
Yeah,
version.
like
right?
0 point something.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh,
This is alpha.
That was actually just such a
Terrible.
horrible experience. So even though I love the way Windows Phone looks with the tiles and the black look, basically night mode before night mode was
A thing.
you know, it was really beautiful and for the most part, for the beginning, really fun to use. But then when you start needing it for like your daily driver, when you start like using it and you're like WhatsApp, the reply system is like, oh
That
my
was
god.
terrible, man.
Yeah, so as powerful as a smartphone can be, as good as its camera can be, as amazing as everything can be, right? The key thing that will make or break a device is always the software, I feel.
Yeah.
That's why even though like let's say a device is like subpar in terms of specs, but it runs like really nice stock Android, a really nice OS, right? I will tend to gravitate towards that,
Yeah.
which is something. What do you think?
Yeah, again, apps is very important, and not just the access to apps, but also how well it integrates with the operating system. Like, for example, BlackBerry. I've tried the BlackBerry OS 10. I think it was the latest one, so I think it's 10.3, if I'm not mistaken. The newer version that has the Amazon store. Well, it's great they can install apps into it. Finally, can get Instagram and all that stuff, but it doesn't feel as polished somehow. And because it's not using Play Store, right? So you don't get the same number of apps as you get on a proper Android phone. So that was the biggest problem I had.
Yeah, so especially if you're going to spend like 3,000-4,000 on a smartphone, the last thing you want is for it. I know we sometimes rag on like EMUI and how it's like, oh, it's not
So
as nice,
cartoony.
it's so cartoony. But you know, at the end of the day, you can still use it like an Android smartphone.
Yeah, there's no
Just-
compromise.
Yeah,
You still get the same apps as your Samsung phone. I mean,
exactly.
yeah.
So in that sense, it was still like, okay, this is still a proper flagship. But if otherwise, I don't know, they're in a rough spot. But at the same time, if we were to talk about Huawei being in a rough spot because of this ban, I believe if we look on the other side of the pond, it's also going to be a hard time because Huawei is recently became the number 2 smartphone maker in the world. It means they're shipping more phones than Apple themselves. Right, they're just right behind Samsung, and in fact, before the ban came in, they intended to beat Samsung as the number 1 smartphone maker by 2020.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's not going to happen yet because of this whole situation. But if we were to look at that, if you were Google or if you were like ARM, for example, right? That's a huge client and so much money gone.
Yeah.
So you think they will let that happen?
That's right. So I'm not sure though, because I believe Google themselves, they're trying to find a way to go around this ban. But looking at the situation, I'm not too sure, man.
It's like it's kind of hard for them to do anything right at this
Correct.
point because it's an executive order. It's like
Yeah.
what are you gonna do?
I gotta defy the government.
Yeah, I think when it first made the blacklist, they did sort of try to use loopholes to still continue working with them, still provide support. It wasn't how they weren't providing services, but they were providing support or something like that. So those were the ways that they were working around. So clearly, they still want to work with Huawei because obviously there's such a huge presence. It's like you can't just ignore them. But at the same time, they're in a rough spot too if they lose the ability to work with Huawei. So right now we're kind of in limbo. I don't know. What do you think? Do you have anything else you want to add?
I'm not sure. I mean, okay, let's say for example, if the Mate 30 Pro has the best camera, because apparently they're going to have 2 40 megapixel sensors.
Right.
So if you have the best camera, the best processor, but it can't run on a full Android, will you still get it if it's going to cost you like $3,000?
Yeah, let us know in the comments below.
Yeah.
And also, what do you think Huawei should do, or what do you think they could do in that situation? Would you use, like Alex said, would you use a phone with Harmony OS? Ooh.
Or maybe Mate 30 Pro with maybe an open source Android that needs to be sideload. If you want to use apps, you need to sideload them like a Chinese phone.
I don't know, man. Let us know in the comments below, though. But yeah, now it's time to move on to the next segment.
Gaming.
Gaming.
So the latest gaming smartphone to come to Malaysia is the Black Shark 2 Pro. So you went to the event. So how's the device?
Yeah, Black Shark 2 Pro, man. It's like not just Pro, it's 2 Pro.
2 Pro.
No, but it is the Pro version of the Black Shark 2, which I think launched like a month before the 2 Pro, something like that. Not that long ago.
In globally, you mean?
Yeah,
2 Pro?
globally,
Yeah.
So the Black Shark 2 Pro, yeah, I got to get some hands-on time with it at the launch event, which was right here in KL. It was a pretty interesting device, honestly. So before that, the other gaming phone that I was really like quite impressed with was the first ROG phone, right?
Yep.
And then compared to that, the Black Shark 2 Pro, I expected it to be like a lot more like, I don't know, I had this impression that it was going to be a lot more garish, a lot more like, oh, your face gaming kind, because that's what the first Black Shark phone was when we got to see that. So when I saw the Black Shark 2 Pro, I was actually surprised. It was more restrained than I thought. It was like,
restrained?
Yeah.
Got more RGB stuff going on.
yes, there's more RGB stuff, but I don't know. Okay, so this could be because of the event's lighting was like either dark or green.
Alright.
So everything looked really like oh, insane already. And then you look at the phone. Oh wait, this looks like a normal smartphone.
Okay.
Yeah. So the design that they had for it, right, was like I remember the guy was giving the presentation on stage. He was like, it's designed like a race car to give you the look of speed. I was like, what? And then I looked at it. I was like, no, I don't know a single race car that looks like that. So the Black Shark 2 Pro, right? So it's like a normal phone, right? And then there's like a metal strip in the middle, and then there are like 2 glass strips at the side. I think there'll be a photo here somewhere. and the glass strips were green on the black model, and then there was like RGB in the middle with like a S that has RGB and 2 little slits with RGB light that was called the shark eyes.
Shark eyes.
They called it the shark eyes.
How does it look like a shark?
I don't know, man. I don't know what kind of sharks they have over where they are
China.
from. Yeah, but apparently those were the shark eyes. Anyway, they're not like too big. I mean, like I wouldn't say they're tastefully done. What I'm trying to say is that they weren't as bad as I thought they were. What I did like though was the build quality. So the body itself, when you're holding it, mostly feels like metal, and it has this really like rigid kind of feeling. Like the P30 Pro that I'm using now is a really rigid phone. It's like well built and solid, but it feels very fragile because it's like all glass. Everything you hold is glass. But the other one, it has like an industrial kind of sturdiness in a way that the first generation of Nokia Android smartphones did.
Yep.
Where it's like metal
like
and
industrial feel.
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
thing. Or like the HTC One series.
Exactly, the One M7. So they had like this. It had like this really sort of industrial feel. Everything you touched was like cold metal. It was really nice, man. It was like pretty solid. I was quite impressed with it. And then the thing that surprised me the most was when I switched it on, and unlocked the screen. It was stock Android.
Stock Android out of the box.
Yeah,
Okay.
it was like stock Android. It looked like it had like a gaming wallpaper, obviously, and then they have preloaded a couple of like features, like including something called Sharp Space, which I'll get into a bit later. But most of the operations, the look and feel, everything was stock Android. So I was really impressed by that. I was like, wow. Wait a minute, it's because the first Black Shark phone that I used was not on stock Android. It was on, I don't even know what it was on already.
But I think the Black Shark 2, sorry, the non-pro version I just recalled is also stock Android. It's more stock Android. I think the previous version was some weird OS, but then again, that's I think the Chinese
only
set.
for China.
Yeah,
Yes. So we had the Chinese set at
the original
that
Black
time.
Shark. Yeah.
Yes. So that's why it was on a different sort of operating system. But this one, I was on stock Android. It was pretty clean. The build was good, and then they had like a slider, like you know OnePlus has its alert slider, right? So it's that kind of vibe, but instead of like changing do not disturb and all that, when you flick it on, it's like it enters this thing called Shark Space. So it flips your phone, into like a landscape mode, and it's like graphics and stuff, Shark Space. Then all your games are there, and then you can't exit it until you slide the slider back. So it's like it's locking you into gaming mode. I was like, okay. It looked kind of stupid at first, but then I couldn't stop doing it after that. I was just like, wow, okay. Yeah, I was totally sold on the whole thing. But as a gaming phone, so it has all like the high-end specs, right? It has a Snapdragon 855 Plus. That's the one that's clocked at 2.96 gigahertz. You can get it up to 12 gigs of RAM and 256 gigs of storage, which is a a lot of RAM. I would have liked to see 512, but 256 is quite a lot also. And it also has like a 4000 milliamp hour battery with 27 watt fast charging. It has all the bells and whistles, I would say. It also has a dual camera at the back, so it's a 48 megapixel main camera and a 12 megapixel telephoto. Then there's like a 20 megapixel selfie shooter up front. But this time, even though it has like quite slim bezels, right, it took like the ROG phone approach, where it didn't cut all the way. So like this one has like a notch at the top, right? So the screen pushes all the way to the top edges. So this one, it doesn't have a notch. It's actually just like a normal bezel, but it's like a slim version of a normal bezel.
It's
so
like a typical forehead, right?
Yeah. Okay. It's like a Note 9.
Oh, okay.
So it's a slim forehead, yeah. So it means that when you hold it in your gaming position, your sort of, look at my extra flash, it doesn't accidentally touch the screen, which was like, okay, I think it's a good way to do it. Also, they included stereo speakers, so it's like, wow, I can't complain there. But as a gaming phone, I was surprised because this is the second version, in fact, third version of the phone, because they also had like a Neo, right?
I think there's a Black Shark 1. There's also a Black Shark Halo.
Hello, yes.
And then there's a
2 and 2 Pro.
So
this is the fourth version already. But they still didn't have like the air triggers that I really liked from the ROG phone and even the Vivo iQOO.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So when I asked Black Shark about that, they were like, oh, they have another system, which I actually didn't mention my hands on. Theirs is that their screen is actually touch pressure sensitive.
It's like 3D touch on iPhone.
Yes. Okay. So it's like 3D touch. So what happens is you can remap the touching. So for each half of the screen, you can actually push to do like various things in the game. So like one example he gave was like if you're in PUBG and you're like running around, and then you can map so that when you pressure touch or 3D force touch the screen, the character will start shooting. So that way you can play with one hand. I'm like, I don't know how accurate that is lah, but that you technically could do that. So I guess that's like the makeup. But for me, right, so the thing that I like about air triggers is that you don't have to only use your thumbs, you can use your other fingers as well. Unless you're like that, that iPad guy who's like who plays his PUBG like that one.
That's insane.
Then that's a different story lah. I think that one, okay, fine, you probably won't need air triggers then. But for I think like regular people like me, I really like the air triggers. But we're comparing a lot with the ROG phone because to us that's like the gold standard, and you got to see the ROG phone too, right?
Yeah.
So how was that phone? I haven't actually touched it yet.
Okay, the ROG phone in terms of build, right, it's very similar to the first ROG phone. So you got glass at the back and you got that extra bit at the bottom for ventilation, which I think right now there's more glass than actual metal.
Oh, so it's not like a metal piece anymore.
So there's like sort of like a plastic or metal frame around it, but the main part of that ventilation unit is actually glass.
Ooh.
Yeah, so you get more glass than the previous one. So it feels very familiar, and you put side by side, it's a much bigger phone because it's like a 6.6-inch screen. And the killer thing about the ROG phone too is that it has a 120 Hz display.
Ooh. And it's OLED, right?
It's OLED, yeah. That's insane. And similar to the Black Shark 2 Pro, you also get the 855 Plus processor, and you also get a 6,000 milliamp hour battery.
Oh my god.
That's the biggest battery you can get on a flagship smartphone today.
6,000 milliamp hours. Oh my gosh. Even the Mate 20X, is that the same battery as the Mate 20X?
Mate 20X is 5,000.
5,000,
yeah,
right?
This is 6,000.
It's insane.
So remember the Zenfone 6?
Yeah.
You thought that was crazy. Oh crap, this 5,000 milliamp hour, this is like taking away all the way to the top.
Right. But is it like a really like chunky, like is it bigger than
it's quite similar to this. It's quite big. It's quite big.
That's actually pretty okay for
pretty
something
okay.
with 6,000 milliamp hour battery.
It's really quite slim. I expected it to be thicker. And one thing I like about the ROG phone too is that it keeps the essential stuff, like what you need as a gamer. I mean, you get the air triggers. You also have this improved vibration system, the haptic feedback, and you also comes with a headphone jack, and not just one USB port, but 2 USB-C ports.
Yeah, the headphone jack. Oh my god, the Black Shark 2 Pro doesn't have a headphone jack. It only has one USB-C port, which is like over here, the normal place. So the ROG phone has one here and one here.
If you put the air cooler attachment.
Yeah, exactly. Which makes sense because
when you play like this, right,
it
you
makes
just
sense
plug your charger and your headphone jack at the same time.
Yeah, exactly. And the Black Shark, I was surprised that the Black Shark 2 Pro didn't have a headphone jack. I thought that was like a really essential thing for gaming. And when I spoke to the people at Black Shark, they were all about like, we are all gamers. 90% of our company is made out of gamers. So I was surprised that they didn't have a headphone jack. Like, What? How are you gonna Discord your buddies? Are you just gonna do it over speaker? Bluetooth. Okay,
Bluetooth.
so
Oh,
I tried with Bluetooth headphones. I tried to play a game. I'm not much of a mobile gamer, but even I could tell that the delay. Oh my god, so distracting, way. Seriously, it was actually ridiculous. But coming back to the ROG phone too. So how much is that?
The official price not out yet, but based on directly sources, because they already give a couple of teasers before the actual launch. The 12 gigs RAM, and let me just check again. So yeah, the 12 gigs RAM and final 12 gigs of storage version is going to be priced less than 4,000 ringgit. It's 3XX, and I got a feeling it could be priced at 3,999 ringgit, which is quite similar to the first gen RG phone.
Yeah, which actually means that you get like a pretty big upgrade for not much of a price increase.
Yeah, you get a better screen, a newer processor.
But there were two versions of the ROG phone, right? There was one that's a lot more affordable, like below 3,000.
Oh, there was a Chinese version. That's a 10-cent edition. That's like going for 2,000, kind of 2,200 ringgit or something like that.
But
in Malaysia, I think 2008.
Is it the same phone, or are there like some differences?
There's some differences. So I believe ASUS has sent out like a spec sheet comparison. So there are a couple of things, like first of all, the LTE bands are different because China, I don't think you need that much LTE bands. And also in terms of Wi-Fi, you don't get the Wi-Fi AO2.11ad, which is used for the WeGig dock, which is something that you can plug into and you can stream it to your TV in high resolution. And also the chargers is different as well. I think the Chinese set comes with 18 watt, whereas the global version you get the faster, I think 30 watt charger.
I think the build is slightly different too, right?
Yeah,
like
and
it's less glass.
And also even the box, you don't get the fancy ROG box that you get here.
That was awesome.
That's awesome.
That box,
yeah.
that box was pretty killer. Yeah. So, but if we were to compare the ROG phone too, like we talk about how it has a lot more features, or at least we feel like it has a lot more features, and it seems like a much more powerful smartphone. The fact is that it is also a lot more expensive. So the Black Shark 2 Pro, which is still a high-end smartphone, is retailing from 2,499 ringgit. That version you get 8 gigs of RAM, 128 gigs of UFS 3 storage. UFS 3. That's the same one as the Note 10 and the OnePlus 7 Pro. So that's really fast. And 2,499 ringgit. That puts it below even like most commercial flagships right now. So it is actually a pretty good price. But I have seen a couple of people who have commented on our posts about how reliable the Black Shark's software updates are, and apparently in their experience it's not very good. So I haven't had any experience with that because I haven't actually reviewed a Black Shark smartphone yet. But if you have, drop your experiences in the comments below too. As interesting as gaming smartphones are though, I think one thing that's on a lot of our minds, especially for more casual gamers like me, is cloud gaming. Right? Do you even need a gaming smartphone in the future if you have cloud gaming? What do you think?
Well, on the surface, it sounds ideal. I mean, you don't. So basically, cloud gaming, for those who don't know, is that basically all the hard work's done on the server somewhere in the cloud, and all you need is a screen interface. So it can be a normal smartphone or computer or iPad like this, and that's all you need to enjoy cloud gaming. But the biggest problem which I can see is that how many people have access to high-speed internet? Because when it comes to situations like this, right, to get a high quality playback, you need to have good internet connectivity. And how about the latency, the lag? How are they going to solve it?
Yeah, that's actually a very good point, because if we are in like an area with poor network coverage, sometimes it's even difficult for us to stream like Netflix.
Correct.
How are we going to stream like a game? So one of the, I think for on the mobile platform, one of the more notable cloud gaming solutions are Google Stadia, right? But right now, like details about that still a bit up in the air. We don't know like how we're going to pay for it yet, and when it's going to hit Malaysia, or if it ever will. Hello, we don't even have a pixel. So when it comes to stuff like that, right, and where would the servers be located? So the interesting thing about that is when we think about cloud gaming, it's all like, all you need is a display, right? So you just put it on a screen, and then you can play a AAA title, no problem, because your phone's not doing the processing. It's literally just the display.
It's like watching YouTube.
So if all you need is a really good internet connection, okay, fine. But one interesting thing when I spoke to Black Shark about this, because I asked them about this particular aspect, like, would you need a gaming phone if cloud gaming becomes really mainstream, right? And their answer was a bit surprising, because they didn't feel that a phone would suffice, because when they put it in context, right? So if you think about AAA title and the controls that you need to play that game, you need like a proper controller, or if you're on PC, it'll be like a mouse and keyboard, right? Those are so many things that you can interface with. Whereas if you're on a smartphone, it's going to be a completely different experience. You're not going to have access to a lot of the sensors, you're not going to have access to all the buttons. Probably it will be a completely different experience. And then the developers themselves will have to develop a version of the game that will work across all of these platforms. So that becomes a bit tricky. On the Google Stadia side, you have the Stadia controller, which is very similar to a console controller. Yeah, okay, that might be a solution, perhaps. But at the same time, we don't know about stuff like the latency. We don't know about,
But the interesting part about that controller is that it doesn't connect to your phone. Apparently, it connects straight to internet.
Wi-Fi, right?
So that kind of cuts down the latency.
Yeah, I guess that could work. That'll be interesting to see how that works. But in her mind, right, in the Black Shark rep's mind, she believes that it's going to be like a different kind of interface altogether. It's going to be a different kind of mobile device altogether. It's not going to just be a phone, which I was like, okay, didn't consider that. But
what do you mean by that?
Yeah, so to her, right, when it comes to this kind of portable device, right, a phone is not going to cut it because it doesn't have all the necessary sensors. To her, as someone who develops gaming software and gaming hardware, and is part of a gaming company, basically. So she believes that it's going to be a proper sort of portable device, so maybe something like a Switch.
Or like what's that, NVIDIA Shield?
Yeah, something like that. So it's going to be a standalone device. But then if you think about that, right, then it kind of defeats the purpose of like cloud gaming where you can play on your phone, right?
Yeah, because it's all about accessibility, right?
Yeah.
For any screen you have, it could be a TV.
Exactly.
Your laptop.
But at the same time, I understand also that you definitely won't be able to get the same experience on your smartphone.
Yeah.
And developers will have to build like a game that will be able to be diluted down into this kind of form factor. Not only will the UI elements be absolutely tiny, you have the controls and stuff like that to worry about. So I think that's a very interesting topic that maybe we can even do more content on in the future. If you're interested, let us know. What do you think about cloud gaming and gaming in general, though? Are you like all for Google Stadia, let's go cloud gaming, or are you like me, still PC Master Race, struggling around along with your 1060? Okay, all right. I think that's something that I'd love to hear your thoughts on, so just leave them in the comments below. And now, okay, cool. I think it's time to move on to our third and final topic.
Roaming.
Okay, so as a company, we travel a lot for events, and we do get this question every once in a while. People are asking us, what's the best kind of solution for roaming or data solution for when you're traveling? In the olden days when the internet wasn't so wild, it was just like go other country means go other country lah, go enjoy there. No, now it's about the gram, man.
Yeah.
So you need a proper data connection. You can't rely on free hotspot, free Wi-Fi. That's rubbish. So we will be sharing a couple of our experiences. I think we have a couple of interesting solutions. We'll go through them. Of course, you have stuff like a pocket Wi-Fi. You have the ability to just roam from whatever local telco you have, and then you also can buy a local SIM at wherever it is you're traveling, and you can also get something that's called a traveler SIM, which is something very interesting. And so, Alex, what are your thoughts on roaming? What's your go-to?
For me, usually I don't want to spend too much time looking for local SIM cards. So what I normally do is, depending on the trip as well, it's going to be a short trip. I normally go for a normal roaming plan on my current telco. Like for instance, I think DG, if you got a prepaid SIM, you can get like a 3-day pass for like 25 ringgit, which gives you like 2 gigs of data, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, DG's roam. Hang on, I have it here. It's called Roam Pass.
Roam Pass, yeah.
Yeah, roaming pass. I think that is my go-to also, especially because they support quite a few countries. And when you get that, it's actually really good value, I feel. Really good value in terms of like roaming lah, because normal roaming like on postpaid plan is like 36 to 38 ringgit a day, and you get 500 bags. This one is mostly the plans range from 1 day social pass, 1 day normal internet pass, and like a 3-day sort of roaming pass, which is like a bulk purchase lah, basically. So it's like usually $25 for the one that I get for the 3-day pass, and you can get anywhere from 2 to 4 gigs of data. And you even include calls and SMS, which is, I think, really good value if you're like traveling, especially in the supported countries. So I've been to Japan, it works there. I've been to Shanghai, it works there too. And Southeast Asian countries, no problem, dude. It's actually a really good. So so I don't use Digi in Malaysia because the coverage is terrible where I am. I'm a Celcom user. But I do keep a Digi prepaid SIM card just so I can capitalize on that, and I think that's actually a really good option. So if we're looking for like one of the options for roaming, I think that Digi's roaming pass, you should definitely check that out, because a prepaid plan is a prepaid pack is like $8.
Yeah, 850.
You have like ringgit credit, something like that, and then you just top up however much you need, which I think is like, wow, really good, and the coverage has been pretty solid.
And one thing I like about Digi plan is because if you think about it, right, the whole pass is valid for 72 hours, exactly 3 days. So unlike a normal plan you get from telcos, like the daily plan at 36 ringgit, right, they normally charge based on the local time. So let's say if you arrive at country at 11 p.m, if you activate a pass, right, that's only going to be valid until midnight at that country, and that's going to be quite expensive. It's not going to worth your money. Whereas for Digi, if you activate at 9 p.m, you're going to expire 9 p.m. exact time, like
72 hours later.
72 hours later.
Exactly. And not only that, when it comes to like those daily activation things, sometimes you need to do maths because you don't know if it's like 12 o'clock where you are, 12 o'clock where you came from.
Yes.
Right? Because sometimes they follow like KL time, for example.
Yeah.
And then that's like, wait, what?
That's even worse.
Yeah.
So what time's KL right now? So and then not just that, in some telcos, right, they follow the capital city of the country.
Right.
So like for example Australia, right?
Yeah.
Like, you follow Canberra time, and then you're in Perth, and then that's like Malaysian time. So what time is it? So you don't need to worry about that time zone difference.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool of them to go 72 hours. So let's say if you land, in fact, if you're on a 4-day trip, right, you land like in the afternoon or evening, you can actually last the entirety of your trip.
Yep.
And that's like, you have like 2 to 4 gigs of data for the entirety of your trip. That's really awesome. So I think if we were to do roaming with our own telcos, our Malaysian telcos, I think Digi's roaming pass is probably the best. And then everything else, I think we should look at the other options.
But there's one plan though, you do
Right.
how they approach roaming is a bit different, because unlike other plans where you pay X amount, you get this amount of data and how much validity, for you, they're having something called like a data roam pass. So in a way, it's giving you access to your home data. So let's say you get a good promotion and you get like 62 gigs for a cheap price. So you can pay as low as 10 ringgit per day and can access all your quota. So let's say you're going to a country and you need to upload footages, for example, you need to upload 5 gigs and nowhere you're going to get 5 gigs for cheap. So you can just pay 10 ringgit and use up all your home data.
Okay.
But then again, it depends on the countries.
Yeah.
So ASEAN, I think it's 10 ringgit, and for other countries like the more Western countries, I think can go as high as 25 ringgit. So that's quite high. And
it's not like you're getting extra data on top of that, right? You're paying literally just to use your own data, which you have already paid for.
Yeah.
So.
But if it's one day, I think it's quite worth it. 1 or 2 days.
Yeah, I guess that's not too bad then. And UDO, in case you're unfamiliar, is this new telco under Celcom, right?
Yeah, so the digital telco.
Yeah, the new way of digital telcos alongside I think it was Ukyo and Tap, where they have this system where you get actually use a couple of sliders to like slide around and change your whether you want more data that month, you want calls or SMS or whatever. It's pretty cool. You should check them out if you're interested in like a low commitment kind of data plan. I think they have a lot of promos right now, so you can do that. So besides that, do you have anything else you want to add about local telcos and roaming, or should we move on to?
I think we can move on. Yeah.
All right. So let's talk about Pocket MiFi then. Yeah. So I have experience with Pocket MiFi. I generally don't prefer them because of my first experience. So
what was it?
The first time I went, it was actually to the US, to New York. So I had this travel recommends Pocket MiFi, right? And there were a couple of issues with it. So for me, the Pocket MiFi, it really depends on what network it's on and where you are. So if like in KL, right, if the place where you are doesn't have coverage from that telco, you shouldn't buy that telco. But if you're getting a Pocket MiFi, you don't have that kind of knowledge, right? You don't know whether it will work or not. So I was actually on AT&T in Manhattan, and for some reason it was really slow. But that was still okay because I could still do like social updates and that was fine. But for me, the biggest problem was the MiFi device itself. So I think it was quite old already, so the battery wouldn't last an entire day. And then I thought, okay, never mind, I have a power bank, I'll just plug it in. And then you plug it in, and then you realize, oh, the port is actually super loose. So you plug it in, and I put it in my bag, right, and it just comes off, and then suddenly, oh, you're out of data. I was like, what? What do you mean? And then it's dead because it's not plugged in. So yeah, that was quite a hassle to deal with lah. It's not like, if it's on your phone, right? It's just like,
it's always on, right?
Yeah, my phone has battery, I can see that. That one is like, you put it, even if you plug it in a power bank, you put it in your bag, right? It's just like, that was a bit of a headache. Have you used pocket Wi-Fi before?
Yeah, I think a couple of trips to Europe and to US, I've tried Roaming Man.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so they're based at KLA. So the Wi-Fi looks like normal, but one thing I like is that it can last pretty long. I think if I charge it overnight and the next day if I unplug it around 8 a.m, it can last me until, let's say, 7 p.m, about 12 hours. So it's pretty good for me. And no connection. Okay, there were some connection issues when we go to event halls, but then again, that's because of congestion at the location. But other than that, no issues.
Oh, okay.
But so far in US, in UK, no problem whatsoever. And the rates are quite cheap too.
Oh.
Like, no mistake, it depends on what country you go to. Some could be as low as 12 ringgit per day or 10 ringgit per day. Yeah, with I think 500 meg data, 1 gig data. Yeah.
But the MiFi device was also like quite new lah, is it?
It's not exactly new. You can see the scarf because it's been shared by
Yeah,
Aurora.
yeah, obviously.
Yeah, it comes with this small black bag with a
Okay.
cable. It's fine. Yeah.
What kind of do you remember what kind of plan you got? Like how many gigs and?
Not sure. I think some of them could be, depends on country. Some is unlimited. Some could be like 500 meg per day. And there's another alternative called Wio, W-I-Y-O.
You're right.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're also it's another alternative, and apparently they have a cool looking MiFi. So apparently the MiFi, there's a screen on it. Yeah, so it looks like Android phone with a power bank on it.
Okay.
Yeah.
My MiFi also had a screen on it, but it was really hard to see because it was like those really old screens, so it was properly backlit, right?
Yeah.
It was like quite difficult to see, like, and it was scuffed up.
Yeah.
I mean, that device has seen some days of not so good use. So yeah, for me it's really down to the MiFi device. And do you want to actually carry another device along with you? Do you want to have to charge that to make sure that that's working all the time? Because sometimes if you get unlucky, like I'm pretty unlucky with electronics, you will get like a lemon unit or something quite rough. So that's something you have to consider when you want to pick up like pocket MiFi devices. So one way is when you get it, if you do want to go for a pocket MiFi, which sometimes it can be a very good option, it's often quite cheap. When you want to rent it, you just make sure you go through the device properly, make sure your phones can connect, check through all of those things. Does it charge properly? Is the port loose? If not, I think you probably have to like get another one, get another device for your needs.
Correct.
But yeah, I think that's an okay option. But personally, if your country has like the roaming pass, the Digi roaming pass, I would still go for Digi roaming pass. It sounds like an ad, but it's not. It's just a really good experience for me. Way better than like using Digi in KL.
And of course, the most popular option that most people talk about is getting a local SIM. Well, that depends on which country you're going to. I guess in Malaysia, like so in most countries in Asia, right, it's very easy to get a SIM card in the airport, but it's not the same situation in other countries. Like in US or in, let's say, in Europe, right? Not all telcos are available, and what you normally get is those MVNOs, and you don't know how good is their network.
A lot of times the ones that are in the airports are like, from what I've seen right, in Europe especially, it's like you have the tourist-focused MVNOs, where they'll sell you like huge packages that you really don't need so much data for the kind of traveling that you're doing. And then if you're like, let's say in a European country, like let's say Spain, right, you want to go, you don't want to buy the one from the airport, so you just go to wherever it is you are,
find a
check
dealer.
in, then you go find a dealer, right, and then you go into the shop. So my experience, I remember I was picking up, I think it was a Vodafone SIM, and then I went to Vodafone or Orange, I'm not sure, like one of them. And then I went to the shop. So I was like, first of all, it was really quite difficult to look for the store that I wanted to, because the streets are super windy. So I was like, okay, never mind, I found it. And then I walked into the store, and then they spoke like really little English. So the whole exchange was just like me pointing and them pointing, and then like, using really base words to try and explain telco data plan deals which are complex by nature, you know. It's like, oh, you have 2 gigs now, if you reload then you get 3 gigs extra, but then if you press 444 into the hash, you get like, you know, can you imagine trying to deal with that in a language that you don't understand? Yeah, for me that was quite a hassle. And then sometimes you're like, you look at the plan you paid for it, you got it, and then you're like, hey, wait, it's not the same as what you initially thought it was, because you didn't really understand the person. And yeah, so then that's the complexity of doing that. But I will say that if you want to get a local SIM, my favorite country to get a local SIM in is Taiwan.
Yeah, same here. It's so
Amazing.
easy.
It's like, okay, so the airport that you land, Taoyuan, right? You get out the moment you pass. You don't even before you
immigration.
Hit immigration. Before you hit immigration to collect your bags, there are like telcos across the board. There are like 1, 2, 3 on each side. So there are like 6 counters for telcos. So and the best thing about Taiwan is that it's like, or Taipei in general, it's the land of 4G.
Yeah.
Everywhere is super
Fast, man.
fast. Like you get excellent coverage, 4G all the way, and then so you can pick up like literally any SIM from any telco, and the plans are very straightforward, right?
And they don't ask for how many gigs.
Yeah, they ask you for how many days, and then the quota is unlimited. So you get super fast 4G connection and unlimited quota. You just pay for the days, and the people there understand enough English. And in fact, you don't even need to understand, because all the plans are already like on like a board.
Big boards, very big. Just pick a plan like going to McDonald's. I think it's easier than going to McDonald's.
Yeah, I think so actually. You don't have the option to take off your bun. But the nice thing about that is you just point and then you're settled. So when it comes to a country like Taiwan, yeah, I'll definitely get a local SIM. That's super good. So do a bit of research first. I think if you want to get a local SIM, if you speak the language, it would definitely help. If you don't, then you really need to make sure you're at the right. So it's not always the right choice. I think generally it should be cheaper than roaming, because, well, obviously, right?
Yeah, but not in the US though, because my experience in the US, like AT&T, they charge too much for data. I remember it's like $30 for like 4 gigs of data.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so you might as well go for a cheaper roaming plan like DG.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's a good point.
And if you don't want to go through the hassle of getting a local SIM, you can get something else. There's something called the traveler SIM. What's that? So recently, this is something quite new in Malaysia. So basically, the first option I've seen recently was AirAsia. So AirAsia has this traveler SIM pack. This is actually powered by TuneTalk. So for one price, you get a SIM. It's like a disposable SIM that comes preloaded with data that you can use in a collection of countries. So there's this plan that I think it's called the Red Pack. So for 30 ringgit, you get 4 gigs of data that's valid for 7 days, and used in 15 countries like Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Australia, Hong Kong, Brunei, New Zealand. So if you're doing multiple hops, this is pretty useful. And the good thing about this is that you can get the SIM pack at the airport. So before you leave the country, you can get the SIM already, pop it in, and you don't need to worry about connectivity. Once you're there, just switch it on, and you're good.
So it works across like multiple countries. So let's say if like you spend 2 days in Hong Kong, you spend another 2 days in Singapore, you don't have to like resubscribe.
Don't resubscribe. That's the beauty of it. Wow. Of course, it's slightly more expensive because it's like 4 gigs for 30 days. But I guess for a short trip 1 week, it's quite okay.
4 gigs for 30 days. Yeah. Okay. How much is that?
Sorry, 4 gigs for 7 days for 30 ringgit.
For 30 ringgit. Okay. That's actually not bad, right? Even if you compare to like the DG roaming pass, it's actually pretty, I would say, more bang for buck.
Yeah.
Because it's 7 days and multiple countries. You don't have to resubscribe every time you enter another country. I think that's actually pretty interesting.
Yeah, that's another good alternative.
Okay.
And
is anyone else doing this?
Red One also has it as well. This it's actually much earlier than the AirAsia's pack. They call it the Red One Data SIM. So it's slightly more expensive, 50 ringgit for 4 gigs of data as well, and it's valid in 7 ASEAN countries.
7 ASEAN. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But then fewer countries lah.
Fewer countries. But the thing about Red One is that you can't top up, you can't extend validity. So you buy this, if you finish data, that's it. You can't do anything. You need to throw away. Whereas for the Asia version, you still have the option to top up or to buy more data.
Oh really? Yeah. Okay. So that means if you buy, so then it becomes more like a normal SIM lah.
Something like that. But it's more like subscription based. So you pay exactly. Okay, I want to extend another 7 days. You need to pay another 30 ringgit. You can use your credit card using on the app.
Okay. But then you can continue using the same SIM, right? You don't have to throw the SIM away and get another SIM, right? Okay. I guess that's pretty good. But how long, like let's say you buy the SIM already, right? Let's say you pre-buy it. How long does it last before you have to activate it to use?
Yeah, I'm not too sure. I haven't tried it yet. I got a feeling it could be activated on the spot, or maybe you can activate it later on. I'm not too sure. Yeah.
Okay, so you can like buy a few and just keep there, just in case.
Hopefully, yeah. But don't quote us on that. Do check the site first. Yeah.
Yeah, but I think that's a pretty interesting thing. I don't know if there are any other solutions that allow you to hop from country to country without being without resubscribing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Oh,
haven't
there's
heard
one
of-
more.
Oh, is there?
Flexi Roam.
Oh yeah, Flexi Roam.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I remember the good old days of Flexi Roam when we used to use it.
Yeah.
But we used it primarily because it was really easy to get. Like, okay, so Flexi Roam is useful, especially if you have like a lot of transits, and if you go through like airports with terrible Wi-Fi, because not all airports have good Wi-Fi. In fact, very few airports have good Wi-Fi. So if you go into like transit and you need a bit of data to like tell your loved ones like, oh, I'm here, I've landed, or just to check up your next flight, check if there are any delays, anything like that, you can just you can just switch on your Flexi Roam SIM, and you have access to this pool of data that you would have either way. So the nice thing, and then one nice thing also about that is that you don't need to use up like a proper SIM slot. So Flexi Roam is actually like a bit of a sticker that you can just stick onto your existing SIM card. So if like you're using a dual SIM phone, you have both SIMs occupied already, you don't take it off, you can still just stick it on to your SIM card and then switch over in the app, and then you have access to Flexi Roam data.
Yeah, so it's like a virtual SIM in one single slot.
Yeah, but I think they've since changed their plans a little bit, right?
Yeah, last time the good old days, right, we get lots of free data because they've been throwing up promotions on Facebook and this campaign and KLA. I think you go to certain shops, you can actually redeem data codes.
Right.
Yeah, so you get extra data for it. And back then, I believe there's no validity, so you can just accrete the free data and you don't need to worry about expiry. But nowadays, if you want to buy data, it's quite expensive. I think it's like, I don't know how many US dollars per gigabyte, and there's a validity to it. It could be like 30 days and that. If you don't use up the data, it's going to waste.
Yeah, and then they lock up your data, right?
Yeah.
Does it expire? Did they lock up your data?
No, I think they expire now. Basically, you buy it. Let's say you buy X amount of data for how many days, right? That's the validity. That's it.
Oh god.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the in the past it was like we had actual sort of sets where it's like you have a pool of data, right? They can just pull from, and that actually saved my life in New York because I had a phone that didn't have support for the T-Mobile bands for the telco that I bought. So I had the SIM, and I was stuck on Edge. And I couldn't because it didn't have the T-Mobile bands. So I was like, both my phones didn't have the T-Mobile bands. Thank you, HTC. Was it HTC? No, thank you, OnePlus.
OnePlus, yes.
It was the Malaysian OnePlus 3
Yeah.
T, 3 or 3T, I think, and it was a Mi 5.
Mi 5, yes.
I was
Mi
like,
5.
so I was just stuck there with no data, and then I was like, oh, okay, let's just try Flexi Roam. Right? So when I switched to Flexi Roam, it was on AT&T, and I was like, oh, okay, it works. So yeah, it was really useful to have that there because it never expired, and you could always just use it whenever.
And then there's multiple telco agreements for every country. I think each country they have at least 2 agreements.
Yeah.
So if you're not happy with one, you can just switch to the other telco.
Which was actually pretty good, but since then I don't know if you can still recommend Flexi Roam. I think it's a bit on the pricey side.
Yep.
So if you want to go there, that is an option, but it is quite pricey, and I believe you have to order in advance to have them ship it to you, right? Yeah, so you have to order the plans in advance to have them ship the sticker thing to you.
But these days there's an eSIM version, so I think that should be quicker. Yeah.
Okay, then that might be much better in terms of immediacy, because like sometimes like travel insurance also at the airport I buy.
And eSIM is also better.
Oh yeah.
Because the old school style, right? Okay, the thing about the sticker is, if let's say you put it in a primary SIM, and once the problem is that when you put it in a primary SIM, right, and once you switch Flexi Roam on, your home SIM is switched off.
It turns it off.
So let's say you want to do online banking like Maybank to you. So okay, you're on Flexi Roam SIM, and then you do some transaction, and okay, we send a tag number. The next thing you realize, oh crap, I can't receive because my home SIM is turned off.
Yeah.
And then you switch it back, you have no data.
You no data. So it's like a chicken and egg situation.
Yeah.
So for us, okay, I guess we've gone through all the options. I don't know if there are any other options. If there are, leave them in the comments below too. But if it was you, what would be your recommendation?
For me, short-term visits, I will still go for DG prepaid. The past $25 is still good value. Anything longer than that, or if the country has actually good deals on data, I'll go for local SIM.
I agree. And if you've been to, especially if the country has good coverage on across all their telcos, right? So you don't need to worry about which one you buy, like Taiwan, for example. Then definitely get a local SIM. But if it's like a foreign country, you're not sure of the coverage, you're not sure of the language, maybe it might be better to just get like a MiFi or just roam on your own local SIM.
So I think that's it for this week's LTA.
Yeah, I think that's it. We've covered our topics. We've gone through everything. Let us know what you think of this week's LTA. Leave your feedback in the comments below. Like I said, we read all of them and we take everyone very, very personally. And I appreciate every one of you guys tuning in every time. I know you've been asking for a podcast for this, and yes, we have been working on it. We actually have tried a couple of versions already. Just need a little bit more fine-tuning before we can release it. We'll be sure to drop those links wherever. We will update you, so you want to follow us, you should subscribe to our YouTube channel, click on the notification bell icon. You can follow us on Facebook, give us a like there, or searchandchow.com, best place in the world. Okay, and that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Rory, and that's Alex, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.